Now, join us on the program, Dave Workman from the Seattle Gun Rights Examiner and GunWeek.com. Dave, good evening to you, sir.
Well, I'm fine. How are you, Cam?
I am good. Glad you could join us tonight. I mean, always something going on with Fast and Furious, but today or yesterday, big developments in Fast and Furious.
Well, as a matter of fact, I think yesterday may have been that giant flushing sound that you heard. It just,
I think you're right.
The congressional inquiries on both the House side and the Senate side, one is being done by Darrell Issa, the other is being done by Charles Grassley. Somehow some emails surfaced in this inquiry. Senator Grassley got a hold of these emails. The emails pretty much refute any notion at all that the ATF in Phoenix never deliberately allowed any guns to get into the traffic. There is an exchange of emails between an unidentified firearms dealer down there and one of the group supervisors that clearly shows the dealer was concerned about allowing all of these guns to get into the hands of suspected gun runners. He made this clear in a couple of email exchanges. He was assured that no, we're doing what we need to do. You got to let these things go through. We'll reassure you. And 6 months later, we had the murder of Agent Brian Terry down there about 10 miles north of Nogales in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
And two of these guns showed up that were part of this Project Gun Runner and Fast and Furious that was being operated out of Phoenix. These emails, according to CBS News, are damning evidence. I call them devastating in my column yesterday. I tell you, Cam, this story is so monstrous now, and I don't use that word a lot, but this is a monstrous story of, I think, deliberate government stonewalling. There have been strong signs that the ATF knew exactly what was going on with these guns, and now there's an effort, or at least has been an effort, to keep this from Senator Grassley and Darrell Issa, and thank God for Issa. It didn't take him very long at all to issue a subpoena for these documents after his request for the documents was completely blown off.
Yeah, no, you're right, and thank goodness for that, because again, I mean, what we're learning here, Dave, as you read those emails yesterday and you saw the FFL continuing to say, we're really concerned about this. There are a lot of us who are really concerned, would like something in writing so that, we're not held accountable. We don't want to be seen as the bad guys here. All of the concerns that you would expect, that we know FFLs have, because we know FFLs aren't out to break the law. We know they're not trying to arm the cartels. And all of that was documented and demonstrated in those emails. And the response from the ATF supervisor was, "You're doing a great job. It's really valuable that you're doing this. And look, we can't tell you all of the security procedures that we have in place, but trust us. Just trust us."
Yeah. Obviously, you've read those emails at least once, and it sounds to me like you've read them more than once.
Several times, yes.
When they first came to my attention yesterday, I looked through them, and I sat there and I thought, what in the world were those guys thinking?
I know.
And the real irony here, and it's a horrible, horrible irony, the unidentified FFL down there, he belongs to a group of federal firearms licensed dealers who were demonized. They were savaged by the left, by the Obama administration about 18 months ago, when they started screaming bloody murder about all these nasty guns that are going south, that are coming out of gun shops in the United States, and particularly in the border states. And this guy, we don't know who he is, But this guy had the courage to step forward and send these emails and say, look, you guys are going to get somebody killed. That's my concern. And remember, one of the emails, the last email I think in the stack, was dated June 17th or July 17th of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And in that email, he said that he was very concerned because he's got friends who are Border Patrol agents, and he didn't want to see them harmed. And 6 months later, we got a dead Agent Brian Terry. That was almost omniscient. He was clairvoyant, predicting this, and we know from past interviews that were broadcast by CBS News with some of the agents involved, the whistleblowers, who had been telling their supervisors the same thing. You're going to get somebody killed. No, we're not going to get anybody killed. Did bang, you get somebody killed. And then all of a sudden they start making arrests. The first arrest in this case happened hours after Brian Terry was killed. That would have given them plenty of time to figure out that they had two guns that were allowed to go south at that murder scene. Yeah. That's when they acted. This is an appalling story.
It is, and as Senator Grassley said in that letter to Eric Holder, the statement that was made that the Justice Department did not knowingly allow any of these firearms to walk across the border is no longer credible.
And I think that's significant because Chuck Grassley's not a guy to throw stuff like that around.
Right.
He's a very quiet guy. I suppose to watch him, he's one of these guys that just goes after the little small details, and that's where he really made his reputation in Congress. He goes after accountability. And now he's holding the Justice Department accountable. He says, your credibility on this issue is shot.
Yeah. It is shot. And, again, we haven't heard any response from the Justice Department. It keeps getting worse and worse, I think, for the Justice Department, for ATF. And, now, Dave, we've gone from having the sort of, very nonspecific denials to absolute silence. They're not saying anything.
Well, early on in this story, I was talking to one of my sources who happens to be an ATF agent.
Mm-hmm.
And he and I were just chatting about this because he's one of these guys, one of the good guys. He said, I've never let a gun walk. I'd never do anything like that. I mean, that was crazy. And I don't understand what these guys were thinking. And we went on and on. This conversation was going on for a few minutes. And then he said something that has stuck in my mind. He said, I'm going to tell you something. In this business, silence is an admission of guilt.
Yeah. Well, it's hard not to see it otherwise. I mean, look, this is an administration that does not mind defending unpopular policies, and they aren't defending this anymore.
Well, that's the thing. This silence is deafening. It's one of these silences that makes a roar all by itself. I'm going to stay on top of this. I know you're going to be on top of this. I know Ginny Simone, your colleague back there, we chat, a couple of times a week, and she's been working on stuff too, I know. But really, Cam, there are, I guess relatively speaking, still only a handful of journalists out there doing anything with this. I saw Kim Murphy did a piece in the LA Times this morning. I know that yesterday the really big splash on this story came from CBS's Cheryl Atkinson, who did a blog piece on it. And I was out with a thing, about 20 minutes later, pointing people to her blog. And then I had read the Grassley letter by then and read through the email exchanges and talked about that in my column. There is definitely going to be a follow-up on that. And I think one thing that people need to remember, and keep this in perspective, one of the main guys who is involved in this, a guy named George Gillett, He, about a month ago, lawyered up, and now he's cooperating, according to Grassley's letter I think it was April 8th. He is cooperating with the investigation through his attorney. So you got to know, he probably knows where all the bodies are buried on this thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding. Well, Dave, sir, again, I appreciate you coming on the program and talking about it with us. I know we'll be discussing more details, I'm sure, next week, and we'll see you in person in Pittsburgh here in a couple of weeks.
Well, we all hope so. God willing, the creek don't rise. But, Cam, well, what else would I be doing on a Friday night?
I have no idea. I'm sure you could come up with something, but well, in fact, you know what? It's still early out there on the West Coast. We'll let you get to enjoying your Friday night.
Well,
Dave.
yeah, I tell you what. Use your imagination, but there will not be film at 11. I can tell you.
Go see. You know what? Actually, go see a film at 11, Dave. Go see Atlas Shrugged, and and give us a movie review next time we talk.
I actually want to see that film because I read a short review of it today, and I guess it's just a killer movie. The reviewer said conservatives are going to love it, and the critics are going to hate it, so it's probably going to be a pretty good movie.
There you go. Hey, Dave, thanks again, sir. We'll talk to you soon.
See you in a couple of weeks.
All right. Dave Workman from the Seattle Gun Rights Examiner.